Welcome back to Conversations with Boston School Psychologists, building safe and supportive schools, one conversation at a time, where we spotlight the people, practices, and partnerships behind behavioral health in Boston Public Schools. I'm here with our Senior Director of Behavioral Health Services, Dr. Andria Amador. And today we're excited to welcome Carmen Needham. María del Carmen Needham is a bilingual school psychologist providing Spanish bilingual psychoeducational evaluations in underserved regions. She has been practicing for 18 years, working in rural and urban districts. She served as the MAC Latinx co-chair and currently serves as the NASP Texas delegate. Her passion is serving Spanish-speaking populations, and Carmen, thank you so much for joining us. Can you first start by telling us a little bit more about yourself and how you became passionate about supporting ELL students? Go ahead.
Thank you so much for having me. I myself am a first generation here in the U.S. My parents came as undocumented immigrants, and so in search for a better life. And I have been so passionate about serving emerging bilingual students because I was one of them. And so we always do work that speaks to you, and working with the Spanish community and being able to be a connection to parents, to families, to students, and bridging that gap of either bringing information to families or helping families as they navigate this space of special education or just education in general has been very rewarding. So that's how I ended up here in the field, working specifically with Spanish-speaking families. So I've been doing this for 18 years, and there's not a profession I would have chosen other than this one. I've spoken to my husband about this as our kids are trying to navigate and find their path. And one thing that my husband said, he's like, "You are very lucky that you are in a field that you're passionate about." He's like, because not a lot of people get to have that. And that I had never thought about it that way, but I am. I'm very blessed to be able to do this work.
Absolutely. And the field is so lucky to have you. So awesome to have you here today, Carmen. And as an expert on second language acquisition and assessment, can you share ideas on how monolingual school psychologists can improve their practice to support ELL students?
So thank you for saying that I'm an expert, but we're always learning, and we should always come with that humbleness to everything that we do because there's always something else to learn. But as doing this work, I think one of the things that I really hope people would do more is just pause and ask more questions before assuming. I know it depends where you're at in what part of the country and how people respond to emergent bilingual students. So I understand why a lot of people immediately say, when a teacher comes up to them and they're like, "I have a concern for this student." And I know a lot of people immediately say, "But they just got here." But I hope people will pause more and ask more questions, because if a teacher is coming to you, they have concerns. And it might be that they just need a little bit more information as to what the second language acquisition process looks like. But I also think we have a child find duty, and we need to ensure that we are, trying to know more. What does the teacher know about the student? Does Have they talked to the parents? Do the parents have concerns? What is it that they are concerned about? Is it that they don't know how to reach the student and make instruction meaningful to the student, or are they truly concerned? I've worked in all kinds of schools. I had this amazing school that had a very strong response to intervention program, and this was before we switched over to MTSS. And I remember going into a classroom to go observe a student, and when I walked into the classroom, another student caught my attention. It was this student that had just gotten here from Abu Dhabi, and he was at the corner of the classroom while everybody else was in circle time, and he was staring at the lights with his fingers and um, quickly moving them before his eyes because he was seeing how I he the his fingers looked, up against the light. And so I went up to the teacher and I'm like, "Who is this student?" She's like, "Oh, this is a student that just came to us, in the last couple of weeks." I'm like, "Okay, well, why is he not with everybody else doing circle time?" She's like, "Oh, he just likes to be there on the corner and rock and hum and and play with his fingers." And I'm just like, "Okay, um, okay, thank you very much for that information." So I went running to my principal and I'm like, "We need to have a conversation about this student." And so I think and they at first were very hesitant. They're like, "No, he just
Mhm.
got here." And I'm like, "100%, he just got here. He might be adjusting." I 100% get that. However, there are some behaviors that we need to follow up on. Is this typical? Is this how this student typically interacts? How does he interact with his environment? Do we have any language concerns? Sure enough, once we had a conversation with the parents, they had a sibling, and the sibling had typically developing language, and but the student didn't, and so turned down the student had autism. But and I was very thankful that my campus wasn't quick to refer everybody. But we also have to be cognizant of the behaviors that we're seeing and what is consistent with a second language learner and what isn't. And stemming isn't a consistent behavior. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fantastic answer. And that aligns very consistently with Dr. Yvonne Barrero's answer to a very similar question. Our assistant director here in the Boston Public Schools, who's been a leader of the bilingual school psychologists. And to add to that, she also said to get a good, thorough education records from the country that they're coming from. And she would love to call the school or contact the school in some way to get records. She always wanted to try and get more information. So very consistent with what you were saying, Carmen.
and I think that's our families come with a whole history before us. And what was that like? Were there concerns in their home country? Were there not? And if there were concerns, I think I would want to know more as to, well, what did that look like? And I think one of the resources that I refer to a lot is Literacy Foundations for English Learners by Dr. Elsa Cardenas Agan, which right now the bilingual interest group through NASP is doing a book study on that book. And right there, it talks about just, our children develop. Regardless of what country they're coming from, we all have the same typical developmental pattern. We develop language, and if we are seeing difficulties in language early on in their native language, then that is a red flag for us that we need to follow up on and make sure that, that there isn't something else going on. So, anyway.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carmen. Andrea, how has BPS, Boston Public Schools, worked to diversify its workforce to meet the needs of ELL students?
Well, first, I just wanted to thank Carmen for her answer because we know often some districts rush to assess new students, but we shouldn't. We should be rushing to support them. We don't need to do assessments, but we should be, as she said, getting to know them, speaking with their family, and offering interventions. And so, one of the things that we needed to do when we first began this phase of like redesigning our work is to redesign our workforce, right? And so we started by realizing that we needed to be very intentional about our workforce development and our diversity efforts. We couldn't wait until this magical, Carmen was talking about unicorns before we started. We couldn't wait for magical bilingual unicorns to just apply to us. We needed to first go find and recruit people. And then later on in our workforce development, we realized we actually have to be building the pipeline. So what I've come to understand after many years of doing this work is school districts have to take some responsibility in building our own pipeline. So it starts for us with many initiatives. One is the NASP Exposure Project and working with Dr. Charles Barrett, who I mentioned before and thanked him for all of his leadership in this space. We're going out each year using our graduate students and doing the exposure project in our own BPS high schools and in our undergraduate programs, so that we are finding diverse candidates and bringing them to the field of school psychology, rather than just waiting to see who applies and hopes, a Vietnamese speaking school psychologist applies. We're going to go find someone in the field that's a teacher or a BPS student who is a native Vietnamese language speaker and say, hey, have you heard about the field of school psychology? Why don't you join us? So we're going much further back in the pipeline. So I think for us, it started with that intentionality about workforce development and finding diverse candidates so that our workforce reflected our student needs. When Carmen was talking about understanding a student, it's so powerful when a school psychologist who speaks the language of the student is the one having the conversation with the family and saying, like, my husband's from Honduras. I know through him what school is like in Honduras. That gives me an edge in talking to the parent, because then I better understand when the parent says, oh, he only went to school 5 hours a day. Well, that's typical. That's not atypical for him. And so by diversifying our workforce, we now have people who have that same lived experience the student did. And then with that, it's not just enough to get bilingual people, because as Carmen will tell you, everyone needs to be lifelong learners. And just because you're bilingual doesn't mean you understand bilingual language acquisition. So we've done extensive PD for all staff, not just bilingual staff, monolingual staff as well, on what is language development? What does that look like for bilingual learners? How do we support bilingual learners in a culturally responsive way? We've created guidelines for the appropriate assessment and evaluation of bilingual learners, and have had the honor of having Samuel Ortiz come and train our staff and also look at our bilingual guidelines to say, are we doing this right? And we're constantly learning. We're constantly getting new PD. We're constantly looking for products that are normed on the kids that we're trying to serve. So, for example, one of our incredible school psychs who's from Brazil went to buy a whisk that was created in Brazil, normed for Brazilian children. So we're using the right tool for the right kids whenever possible. I could go on, but I'll pause. Those are some of the initiatives we've been doing to try to meet the needs of our students. But I will say, Carmen mentioned that she was fueled from her lived experience. And I just want to say that I am in a different way. My husband, as I mentioned, is an immigrant from Honduras. And my oldest daughter was born in Honduras. And so I have seen what it's like for them to move to a new country, to learn a new language, for my daughter to come here not speaking English and then graduating from our exam high school and becoming a lawyer. As a parent, when you see that journey, you see the value and the importance of what we're trying to do. So we're both fueled by passion and our love of Latinos in similar and different ways.
Absolutely. And I want to give Boston Public Schools credit across the different departments. They have created over 100-page document helping support ELL students. And Dr. Yvonne Barrero was one of the main leaders of that document to ensure that there are best practices in place in the Boston Public Schools. So a lot going on in the Boston Public Schools. Kudos to the Behavioral Health Services leadership team for helping spearhead that initiative. So, Carmen, Said No School Psychologist Ever is the largest school psychologist group on Facebook. And we wanted to know, how does Said No School Psychologist Ever build community in our field?
Well, we try and provide a space for people to come and either commiserate of our day-to-day or celebrate. We try and be very intentional because we know it can become a very heavy the work that we do can be very heavy, especially with the shortage. It can be very trying sometimes. And so we just want to bring levity. We want to bring joy. And so you will find me every Friday with check in, check out, and doing our virtual happy hour, which started out during the pandemic because it had just I think NASP had just happened, and it had switched over to virtual because they couldn't do Salt Lake City, and, we were just talking in the, moderator group how, uh, we wish we could have gotten together, and it's like, "Let's just have a virtual happy hour," and so from
Mhm.
there, check and check out, every Friday started, and as long as people will show up and either tell us, what filled their cup that week, we'll keep going, we'll keep doing it. So,
Oh, yeah. It's a big hit, and we're very lucky to have you as a moderator on that Facebook group. You bring a lot of energy to it. It's happens to be one of my favorite behavior interventions, check in, check out. So the fact that we're able to apply that to school psychologists is awesome. So
yeah.
kudos, kudos. Andrea, can you share, speaking of community, can you share ways that you have built a positive community within your department here in the Boston Public Schools?
I think one of the powers of the Said No School Psych Ever community is it gives you a community. Many school psychs on there will say, I'm the only school psych in my building, or I'm the only school psych in my district, or we're a lot of rural school psychs. I grew up in Maine, so I understand what being a rural provider is. We're lucky in BPS. We have 105 school psychologists. We have 50 graduate students. So that is a big school psych community. But on a typical week, most school psychs don't see other school psychs unless they're in one of our biggest schools that have more than one school psych. And so they get to see each other once a month at a staff meeting. And across the school year, that's only 10 times that you're getting to, hug your friends and commiserate and share. And so we've done several things. We're very intentional about it. But as Carmen said, I'm going to keep repeating this. There's always room for improvement, and we keep trying to find more ways. As we grow, how do you keep that really tight knit sense of community in our department? So a couple of things we do. We have a listserv, an internal listserv, where anyone can ask any question. There's no judgment, and anyone can answer. It's not like asking just an admin. It's like, here's my question, here's my need for a resource, here's my problem, and it's within minutes somebody from that group will answer. And I consistently hear from new school psychologists how great that feels to them to know they're not alone, that they can ask this big peer group a question and get an answer. We've also spent years kind of accumulating resources and have this internal drive for school psychs so that they have templates of how to write up this report, how to write an FBA, interventions, MTSS materials. So lots of resources. But when you look at workforce development and retention and keeping school psychs in the field, what most school psychs will say is, we all want more pay. That's human nature.
Hmm.
But that's not why people are leaving the field. They're leaving because they're overwhelmed. They don't feel like they have support. They often talk about lack of PD and lack of supervision. So we've been trying to address those issues that we can control in our department, right? So we have mentors for new school staff. If you've been in the field less than 3 years, you get a mentor for the first 3 years. That's been really very well received by our new school psychologists, feeling like, okay, I have a listserv, but if it's something private or that I don't want to talk to everyone about or I want to unpack, I have a mentor. We also have professional learning communities, because learning something in a big group is one thing, but when you go practice it and you come back and you have questions, the professional learning community. So that's another level of support. We've also trained a cohort of school psychologists to be peer evaluators so that folks who've been out in the field and need evaluations, but they've been there a while, they have a different layer of support through peer evaluators. So they get resources. And then we do over 100 hours of PD a year internally
Wow.
for free. So school psychs can learn about anything they want to learn about in-house. And that also is really a blessing that most school psychs don't have. Most school psychs have to get their PD from their state association or from NASP and pay for it often from their own pocket. And so because people are getting in-house supervision, support, resources, they feel very supported, and it creates a sense of community. And then we do like to do fun stuff too. So we have a sunshine committee that does an incredible job, from like having regional kind of drop-in happy hours. We've done paint art classes. We've done duck tours. We've done Red Sox games, a variety of self-care activities. So we have like a holiday costume contest. We try to do fun things, and you've been there for some of our PD, Tim. We try to make PD
Yeah.
fun and exciting. So a variety of ways to create community.
Absolutely. That last orientation I went to was a survivor themed, and we went all out for it. We all had our shirts and everything. So it was a lot of fun. It was something I've never seen before in other districts. And speaking of that, I've seen a lot of districts do a first year mentor, never seen a second year and a third year mentor. So Boston's really raising the bar there. So kudos to Boston. And one last thing is the just the high quality of PD. It's not just 100 hours, but it's some top experts that you're getting, including Byron McClure. He's been doing monthly trainings for School Psych AI, Charles Barrett. You had mentioned Sam Ortiz, phenomenal speakers. So it's fantastic that you're doing that. We're going to switch over to advocacy. That's a really big one. In today's climate, we must all be advocating for children. So Carmen, can you tell us a little bit about how you advocate for the students you serve?
Um, I feel the work of the school psychologist is always advocating. So obviously, helping our teams just create better uh, practices and be aligned in supporting our emergent bilingual students. Um, just last night, I read the latest research from Dr. Monica Romero and Dr. Matt Burns, and forwarded over to the team. I'm like, hey, here's another intervention that we can, put in our toolbox to use. So always just staying on top of the latest information, the latest research, and then also advocating for the school psychologists themselves. I do work through the state association and through NASP, and it's just so important that we continue to use our voice. I always think of we can't be waiting for Superman. We are Superman. So we need to be out there and advocating for ourselves and ensuring that our legislators do not forget the importance of mental health services for our youth and just supporting our students. And so just last night, I saw the story how some of the grants were awarded and how there's going to be hopefully potentially in the next couple of years 70 more school psychologists coming out of one program. So just thinking and hearing the conversation of how someone had said, we hardly see the school psychologist pull any students other than for testing. It's like, well, this is what this will help,
Right.
If we can get more practitioners, we can, finally be able to do all of the things that we were trained to do. So, and this past summer, I had the opportunity to do kind of a campaign to bring more exposure as to what school psychologists do, and we did these vignettes where you're able to share the videos with either your school board, your legislators, just so they know what school psychologists do and how we can support our students. And it was also a televised segment with All Access with Andy Garcia. So it was such a great and amazing opportunity, and I'm just so thankful that I was given this chance. Something that they had asked me, what did this mean for you? And I'm like, do you imagine the power of a little Latina student just sitting around at home and this segment, televises, and they see a Latina school psychologist on the television talking about school psychology and the importance of mental health. If I can if you can see it, you can dream it and believe it. So hopefully I'm able to um, just spread the word and a little Latinita can see herself as a school psychologist. So
Absolutely. That's just awesome. And kudos to you, kudos to NASP, collaborating with high profile people like Andy Garcia to get the word out about school psychology. I think that is fantastic. I love these outside the box ideas, and it's just another creative way to get the word out. Great work. Kudos, Carmen. Fantastic advocacy, both at the school, the state, and the national level. So fantastic. Andria, how is the Behavioral Health Services Department in Boston Public Schools advocating for children?
I mean, you just hit on all the reasons we really were excited that Carmen accepted our invitation for our podcast, because she's really doing that work across all levels and really exemplifies what I believe we as school psychologists are professionally called to do, right? We're advocating for our students at our building, which Carmen does every day in her day job. And then she volunteers to advocate at the state level. And Texas is one heck of a big state to do all that work in. And then advocating and being part of NASP, which is where I had the honor of meeting her in our mutual NASP work. Excuse me. And so I think that's that impressive work that Carmen's done. I feel that all of us need to do something in the space of advocacy. And not everyone has Carmen's energy, but you can do something. You may not be able to do everything that was just listed, but you can do something. It could be advocating in your building for a new test kit. It could be advocating for more positions at the district level. It could be just getting involved in micro volunteering in your state association and advocating for state level changes, or getting involved in NASP, because NASP, we always need help at NASP to do a wide variety of volunteer work. So for me, I'm driven by my passion for this profession to do those sorts of activities Maria's talking about. But at the district level, I just want to name one of the important things for us was advocating for the expanded role. And I'll do a plug for an upcoming podcast with one of my heroes, Stacy Skalski, who was one of the drivers of the NASP practice model. We're very excited that she's coming to talk on our podcast about her really incredible leadership at the national level in the field of school psychology. And for us, a lot of the incredible things that we've talked about today all came from us adopting the NASP practice model and advocating for that expanded role. And so what that looked like is sharing information about the roles, training school psychs so that principals could see that they could do something different, and then using the principals' words and support to advocate for more school psychs. And Tim's heard me say this before. When we started this journey pre-practice model, we had 48 school psychologists. We now have 105, and that was years of advocacy. With advocacy comes strong communication skills, written publications. There's a whole range of communication styles, modalities, and efforts, which is why we're doing this podcast. Some people say, why are you doing the podcast? Because we need to continue to raise this awareness about the field, the kids, and advocate.
Andria, I want to give you a plug because the great statistic of like how your department had expanded and y'all had, I don't know how many more practitioners, that growth. And I was talking to Brooke Roberts and I was telling him, I'm like, how did she do that? And he's like, Carmen, this advocacy game is not overnight. It is, you start and you keep plugging at it and you keep plugging at it. And before you know it, this is what it becomes. So I have seen you and I have admired you and the work that you have done for Boston Public Schools for a while. And I think you should be so proud of what you've been able to accomplish. And if I would live in Boston, I would so go work for you.
Not too late. It's not too late to come to Boston. We're always looking for incredible school psychs. But thank you. And I'll say that the work, as you've mentioned, and Tim's been part of our journey for many years. We've mentioned that on the podcast. It's our whole team. And going back to the practice model, when I first learned about it, one of the things I said to Stacy Skalski was, this practice model is great, but there's a whole new skill set we need to know. We need to learn how to advocate and facilitate and communicate. And so school psychs actually get training in things that aren't school psych so that they can do that. So an example that everyone could do is every few years, we practice doing elevator pitches. If you happen to run into someone important, you've got a 3-minute elevator ride to tell them why we need X, whatever, you're compelled to advocate for. More school psychologists, more materials, more money, whatever it is. But we realized pretty quickly, including me, that I needed to learn how to advocate through better communication. And Maurice Elias, another hero of mine from Rutgers, said, Andria, school psychs are good at talking to other school psychs. We have to be better at talking to people who are not school psychs.
School psych.
And that was, thank goodness he gave me that tip early in our evolution. So I keep saying, okay, Carmen and Tim know what I'm doing and why it's important. How do I get someone who knows nothing about the field? And that's something we have to learn and continue to practice.
Absolutely. And I want to echo what Carmen said. It's just incredible being able to, over a 15-year period, more than double the number of school psychologists. And one thing that wasn't mentioned today, but has been mentioned prior, was just the recent award from NASP of exemplary status to the Boston Public Schools. So it's kind of the fruit of your labor being acknowledged at the highest tier from NASP, which is just a phenomenal job to the leadership team, to you, and to all the school psychologists in Boston. Just a phenomenal job, because it truly was a team effort. So I want to shift gears to cultural responsiveness. Being culturally responsive is all about being inclusive. So what suggestions do both of you have to help school psychologists provide more culturally responsive services to students? Carmen, let's start with you.
I think when you are able to see the student for who they are, that is the best place to start. I think we sometimes get very caught up in what test to give, what this and that, but we have a human before us, a young child. And if you're able to see them and all of the beautiful culture that comes with them and their identity, that's the best thing you can do for a student. So I always think about, points of entry with our student. I think about the MIGDAS and how everybody loves that test. And the reason why we like that test is because we learn about the student and we find their interests. And that's how we reach the student. And so that's the same idea. Whenever you work with a student, get to learn about them, their culture, their family, their background, what they love, what is near to their heart. In a lot of our Latina community, it's soccer, lucha libre, those kinds of things. In my office, I have this poster that says, "Don't be self-conscious." And I had a student come in and she's like, "Conchas, I love conchas." Food is just so near and dear to our heart, and it brings so many different feelings and emotions. And so seeing the student and getting to know more about them and learn about them, I think that, seeing and what values their family has, what do you think about this? What are your fears? What are your concerns? Do you also see an issue, like if the school is saying that there's a problem with certain behaviors, like what does the family think about those behaviors? Is that also an issue? So I think that is a way of being responsive to the person before you and celebrating those differences. And I think that's one of the things where I'm at right now, the school that I'm at. That's one of the beautiful things that they do. Earlier in the or last semester, we had basically just a gathering, and it was a celebration. Every grade or every classroom chose a country, and they brought dishes and recipes, and it was this, you know, collection of different meals, and the families were so excited to share about, why they chose this dish, and, like, celebrating our families and their background and their histories, like, that will deposit more, uh, coins in that bucket to connect with the families that any other test or anything will give you. So
That's awesome. Thank you, Carmen. Great answer. Andria, would you like to add to that?
I'll just say, as always, Carmen is the expert in this, and we recognize that relationships are where it all begins. Culturally responsiveness begins with relationships, but also with that flexible mindset. And I didn't really understand it in grad school as a concept. It was actually my lived experience at home that made me realize how much bias we all have based on our lived experience, and how we have to actively every single day question those automatic tapes that we're born with to say, wait a minute, just because I see the world one way doesn't mean it's the right way, that there's more than one way. And I have the benefit being married to someone from another culture, another religion, who speaks another language, to constantly be questioning, like, well, why do you think that? What does that mean to you? Where does that idea or belief come from? But it's still, even though we've had 30 years of marriage and then 30 years of learning the Latino culture, I learn something every day because I didn't grow up there. And simultaneously in work, we've been working very hard on understanding our own bias, addressing issues of equity and social justice. And it's helped me realize that, as Carmen said, we have to be lifelong learners in this space. You're never done. It's a journey of understanding and learning. And actually, all three of us are in multiracial, multicultural marriages because Tim's wife's Honduran. And
That's right.
Carmen's husband is grew up here as a white American. So we all have this shared lived experience of learning at home and learning at work. And so that's why our department is committed to every single month we do something on equity and social justice. This year we have the privilege of working with Byron McClure on hacking deficit thinking and all the bias that can lead to deficit thinking about our kids, so that we're perpetually learning and evaluating how are we coming to the world, what are we bringing to our relationship with families, how are we thinking about kids, and it's a journey we'll continue to be on. It's so serious. And some very basic, I'll give a very basic example. One of our incredible bilingual school psychs gave in a training. She grew up in Haiti. She understands what life is like in Haiti. She was evaluating a child who did not come to school in Boston when there were bad rainstorms. And the teacher didn't get it and was upset. It's like, that's so ridiculous. We live in Boston. What's the big deal with rain? But because Rose grew up in Haiti and knows, but also had a conversation with the mom, like Carmen was suggesting, she learned that the family had lived before moving to Boston in an area with very serious mudslides. And so when it rained very hard, it was life-threatening to go to school. So you would not go to school in that specific place during the rainy season because of potential for harm. So we had to first understand why the mom was feeling that way and understand that family's lived history, and then work with the mom to help her see that that danger didn't exist here. And the student didn't need to miss schools on rainy days because it was safe. And then the student's attendance improved from having a conversation and an understanding and taking the time to get to know the family. But I would never have connected rain with danger as of someone who lived in Maine and Boston. Snow, ice, yes, but not rain. But I would have been making the same mistake the teacher did, not having a mindset to be more inquisitive and figure it out. So it's just an example, I think, of how we can be culturally responsive in every aspect of our work.
Absolutely. Great answer. And we always like to end on something fun, a fun fact. Carmen, I was just curious, it can be school psychologist related, it can be travel related. Andrea and I love to do travel fun facts. So whatever you'd like to do, and we'll kind of spin it off whatever you do as far as a fun fact. We'll add our own little fun facts. So go for it, Carmen.
All right. So I did think about this, and I'm going to do 2 truths and a lie. Okay. And you guys tell me which one is the lie.
Okay.
Okay. I met Jake Gyllenhaal, got his autograph and got a picture. That's one. I've met and confessed my love to Latin sensation Enrique Iglesias. Or I worked at Disney. Which one is my lie?
Tough one. I feel like Andrea might know this because she's been to Disney so many times that I feel like this would have popped up in conversation. Carmen, Andrea, has she ever mentioned to you that she's worked at Disney? But I feel like that's the lie then, because she would have told you that you are a Disney addict. So she totally would have told you that.
I agree, Tim. And I know her well enough to know she would have no problem telling Enrique Iglesias, mi amor, Enrique Iglesias, that she loves him. So And Lucas wouldn't even be mad about that. So I would say Disney is my guess.
Let's go with Disney.
So I kind of cheated because all of them are true. The only one that's kind of a fib is I have a blurry picture of Jake Gyllenhaal and but I don't have a solid picture. So I can never claim that one because I'm like, I don't have the evidence. But
Close enough.
yes. So
If you want, I'll fix it with like an AI photo editor. We'll make it real for you. Oh, that's awesome. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, Andrea, do you want to go next, whether it's a famous person or maybe even just like a fun Latin American trip you've got planned?
Okay.
Do you have anything like that?
No, I'll do the 2 truths and a lie that Carmen said.
Oh, that's fun.
So I have swam with sharks. I did not know anybody at my wedding. And I
Wait, hold on. You didn't know anyone at your
I
wedding?
believe that one.
Time out.
wait, one more. So 2 truths and a lie. And I currently have a trip booked to Disney. Those are my 3.
Well, of course. You have a
Okay,
trip
the
booked.
number 1. I don't believe number 1.
Okay.
I don't believe number 2 because obviously you know who you're marrying and who's at the wedding, right?
Oh,
Wait,
so let me say, I only knew one person at the wedding.
Oh, okay.
I believe that one.
I think I believe that one because it's too specific. It's too hyper specific. Carmen, you're going with number 1?
Number 1.
Okay. All right, let's go with number 1.
So I have swam with sharks. I love to snorkel and in my travels. And I did not know anyone at my wedding except for my husband because we eloped in Honduras and I knew no one and didn't speak the language either. So I hope I'm married. And I do not have a Disney trip planned this second of my life. So that was the lie. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
That
I'm
is-
pretty sure that's going to change. So
Yeah. I feel like you always do. Even if you don't have one, you always have one in the back of your mind.
yes.
I'll go real quick. So, Melissa Joan Hart was my babysitter when I was 3 years old. I won an amateur golf tournament when I was 17. And the third one is I met Dane Cook in Boston when I was in college.
Oh, they all seem plausible.
And I know 3 is true.
So then number 2. Number 2.
Melissa Joan Hart was my babysitter at 3 years old. That's a tough one.
But that's a weird
I believe
Sabrina
that
Teenage
one. Ooh, no, I believe it.
Me too,
Okay.
because that's such a weird person to
Yeah,
pull out of the blue to lie.
You're right. You're right. It's the amateur golf. I didn't win. I would never win a golf tournament in my life unless they gave me like a crazy handicap.
Well, now you know someone really famous very well, Tim. I expect that we should be asking her for some money for children's mental health.
That's just awesome. Yeah, the Andy Garcia collaboration, super cool. Super
No, I
cool,
meant
Carmen.
Melissa Joan Hart, but
Melissa. Oh, I haven't talked to her since I was 3 years old.
Wow.
Oh, that's funny.
Was she
Yeah.
a good babysitter? That's my question.
I'm sure she was. I don't remember. I had to be told this. Oh my goodness.
Fun fact, Tim.
Yeah, for sure. Carmen, any last words of wisdom before we wrap this up?
No, you guys are amazing. And thank you so much
thank
for
you.
having me. I appreciate you guys so much.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much for joining. And thank you to the viewer for listening to Conversations with Boston School Psychologists, building safe and supportive schools, one conversation at a time. Please follow us on our socials, Boston School Psychs, and visit our website, bostonschoolpsychs.com, to learn more about our work. Join our next conversation to learn more about resources and tips for creating safe and supportive schools. Thank you.